we're here with somebody who has been helping the residents of Milford and everybody that lives at the center of the universe for a number of years now. And we're wondering what's happening up on the Hill. So if there is somebody who doesn't know you, Ryan, why don't we start with an intro?
Number of years is 3. Don't push me into old age. I'm Ryan Fattman, the state senator for the wonderful town of Milford and 13 other communities, 12 of which are in Worcester County, and 1 of which is in Norfolk County, Bellingham. And this is my 2nd term, and very proud to be here and happy to have a discussion about what's going on in the state.
Now, I say a number of years because it seems like a long time ago when you were running and you came knocking on our doors for the first time.
Sure, yeah.
Has it lived up to everything you thought?
I've really enjoyed the state Senate. I served 2 terms in the House, as many people know, and I've been very honest, it was frustrating to me. I felt that a lot of times being one of 160, it was difficult to get your voice to be heard, probably especially as a Republican. In the state Senate, the Senate president, to his credit, listens to everybody and everybody listens to each other. The chamber, when you walk into it, is circular. Everybody sits in a circle. I kind of joke it's like, you know, the King Arthur philosophy, the Knights of the Round Table. Everybody is equal. No one's above one another. Even more so, what's interesting, if you look at the seats closely, they're all adjusted to different heights so that
everybody's height is the same?
So that everybody looks each other in the eye. I don't know how they do that. Maybe it's a NSA, CIA thing that they do, but it's a really symbolic, wonderful symbolic gesture, putting everybody on the same playing field. And today, you know, in this chaotic and very partisan world in which we're living in, I was on Beacon Hill in a caucus with both Democrats and Republicans learning about issues from the business community. I don't think you see that down in Washington, D.C. these days, and it's really, I think, refreshing that you do see it in Massachusetts.
Now, when we look at the Senate, I'd love to say there's a plethora of your brethren, but was it 6 out of 40?
We have 6 of the 40
it doesn't even
senators,
rate a pleth.
And yeah, less than we'd like, for sure. But I also think that sometimes issues cross party lines and cross geography. And you oftentimes see Democrats coming over and joining the Republicans to fight for fiscal responsibility. I don't think there's any issue that would resonate more than the pay increase vote. We had 6 senators who were Republicans vote against it, and yet 3 Democrats joined us, and most of them were from the central part of Massachusetts.
I mean, you hear huge pay increases. Oh my God, you must be making millions. What was the base pay before?
The base pay was $62,500 approximately, and with that comes various stipends. There's an office expense stipend, about $7,200, and then each member in the Senate has a different stipend depending on what it is that you do. Mine, for example, was $15,000. Some ranged as high as $35,000, but the average was probably about $10,000. And you know, what the legislature did in its first vote was raise the stipend from $7,200 for office expenses to $15,000. If you lived 50 miles outside of Boston, that went from $15,000 to $20,000. And then the leadership positions changed. They went from, you know, the $15,000 to as much as $60,000. I voted against this. I voted against it for multiple reasons. First of all, it costs $18 million. Now, some would say $18 million relative to a $40 billion budget in Massachusetts isn't a lot of money. The only place where I've ever heard that $18 million is not a lot of money is on Beacon Hill. To me, it's a lot of money, and more importantly, it's your money. You earned it, and the legislature spent it. I can't remember, not in my first campaign for the state Senate, which was contested, or my second one, which I didn't have an opponent, anybody that came to me advocating for me to raise my own pay and to vote for that. I've met a lot of people who have come to me talking about serious priorities, one in particular, which is opioid addiction. And in this past budget, John Fernandez and I, and now Representative Murray and I, have advocated for $84,000 for a JAG program for kids who get addicted to opioids or heroin or whatever. That got cut, $84,000. The reason why I bring this up is I think about the value of that program relative to a young man in Hopedale who is 24 years old, who lost his life to addiction. And he lost his life at the young age of 24, like I said. But I wonder if that $84,000 that was around, could it have made an impact in his life? And I think when people look at the fact that the legislature's first vote was not to restore the money for programs like that have a direct impact on families' lives, but it was for themselves and to raise their own pay, that the priorities of Beacon Hill are wrong. And I've always tried to say that government should be of the people, by the people, for the people, not above the people. And when we do actions like that, I think it's above the people. There's no one out there that I know that can vote to raise their own pay. And I just think that that was the wrong message to send. It's the reason why I voted no, and it's also the reason why I'm not taking the money, despite the fact that I could get it. I don't want it. I don't think it's right.
Now, what do you say to people when they say, okay, I want the most qualified senators, reps? By paying 60 grand, aren't you eliminating some people who just can't afford to be there?
You perhaps are. The thing is, you know up front. You know up front what the salary is, and you know it is a $62,500, but it's actually more when you add up all the stipends.
Mid-70s.
So
okay.
You're talking about mid-70s. You know, the average family household income in Massachusetts is approximately 66.
I would say less than 70.
Yep, but that's also family household income. So, you know, here's one individual who's making above that slightly. And so, you know what the deal is when you go into it. This is about public service. People know in public service, you don't get rich. They do provide a fairly generous retirement relative to the retirement that most private citizens get. You know, Social Security is approximately $1,200 a month for the average person. On a state employee, the average pension would be about $2,400 per month. So on the back end, yeah, a little bit better of an incentive, but it's supposed to be about public service. When you vote to raise your own pay, that becomes about self-service, and I think that that's wrong. Now, it's a very difficult situation because you allude, some people, you know, they work very hard. I'm not taking that away from anybody. I know people who work tirelessly,
sure,
and they voted yes, and they have every right to justify that vote. But for the people that I meet on a day-to-day basis, when I go around and shake hands and go to Eagle Scout ceremonies like I did last week for a young man named Evan and Anthony for the local troop here at Sacred Heart, or you know, the musical breakfast that the high school puts on, and I got to bring my family and, you know, talk to some of the kids. You know, they're talking about putting away dollars and cents so that they can go down. I think they were going to Pennsylvania, to Hershey, Pennsylvania. And, you know, I talked to mom and dads, and they say they're trying to save up every dollar that they have, sure, so they can afford this opportunity for their children. I just don't hear somebody saying, you don't make enough money and you should raise your own pay. And I think that in democracy, trust is the currency of democracy. I think that this is the type of action that erodes some of that trust.
Yeah, I'd love to really have a true study done that said, okay, how many people don't go into elections for public service in Beacon Hill? Yeah. Because they can't live on 60 grand. Yeah. I don't know.
I can tell you this, because I can only speak for myself. I've always said that if at some point I need to make more money, I would leave the legislature and I would go find another job and try to make more money. I feel that there's a lot of people who do that, and I think I have a good education. I think that I'm a fairly smart guy and, you know, hopefully marketable to somebody who'd be willing to, if I had that skill set that they were looking for, I might be able to make an extra buck. But, you know, I made the conscious decision, and my wife did, to go into public service. I had a situation that took me down that path that I wasn't expecting in life. I think it was God's hand. I had a basketball coach who wanted me to coach a group of 8th grade boys when I was in college. I said no. That weekend that I said no, I went down to Mohegan Sun. I think I've told this story before on your show. And I had a college roommate and friend of mine whose dad had just sold medical supply device companies for $30 million approximately. And we had the time of our lives down at Mohegan Sun. Best room, you know, at the suite, presidential level, went to a comedian Dave Chappelle sat in the front row. He came out after the show, hung out with us, steak, shrimp, you name it. We had it. Texted my parents, I want to be rich. This is what I want to do in life. And I go home that weekend to my roots, and I go to the Clark University basketball tournament for Central Mass high schools. And my coach is in the middle of coaching the game, and he drops dead of a brain aneurysm. And in that moment, I learned that there was no money that would ever bring him back, and it changed my life. All that I had seen that glittered in gold, I didn't want that to be really the primary focus of my life. And I said, you know what, I think if I try to make a difference, that will make a big impact.
You think about how many of your colleagues, that have pursued just focused careers. I've been blessed with 2 wonderful daughters who still want us around. I don't know why, and
I hope mine feels the same way when she's older.
You sit there and say, my oldest calls me and says, you want to go to the movies tonight? About every 2-3 weeks, like, sure.
That's wonderful.
And when my darling bride says, what are you going to go see? My daughter.
Yeah.
Whatever the film is really matters not.
Right.
But it's so right when I think back, and friends of mine, have gone the big pharma route and all, and made more money. And I see too many of them hit 55, 60. They're ready now to settle in with their family.
Yeah.
And the family's gone.
Yep.
The kids have grown up.
Yep.
Away from them. I mean, I've got a grandson now. You're going the first cycle. I'm now on cycle 2.
Right.
And he's 1.5 miles away from me. I only get to see him 5 days a week. But friends of mine are telling, well, I see my grandkids every 3rd month or something.
Yeah.
How do you put a value on that?
You don't. I don't think you can. Actually, for me, it's been enlightening, because the first thing I realized when I had a daughter, beyond just the initial reaction.
Any control of your life is gone?
That too. This is my wife and I's first baby, 8 months old, Hadley, crawling around now. But the very first thing I realized, June 17th, this past year when she was born, 2016, was that, boy, I love this girl, and I don't know her, don't have any reason to, but I love her to death, and I would do anything for her. And my second reaction, which probably came around day 3 or 4, she was crying, changing diapers and all that stuff, was, boy, I love my parents, because they did this for me when I couldn't do it for myself, and I know they did. And not only that, but based on the sentiment you just expressed, my parents were around. My mom could have grown her daycare business to be very profitable, but she purposely held it back so that she could come home and be there for me when I got off the bus. My dad denied 2 promotions that would have resettled us to Minnesota. I think about the consequences of those decisions, and the impact it's had on me. Would I be sitting here now? No, probably not. Would some people like that? Probably. But, I think that your parents have a huge influence in your life. I think that the family, if you want a strong country, you have to have strong communities. If you want to have strong communities, that boils down to having strong families. And that's what makes America great. I see it all the time. You see, stuff in the news that you're not proud of. I don't care if it's politics or violence or war or whatever. But then you go to those Eagle Scout ceremonies and you see these young men and what they're contributing.
And you say that's what living at the center of the universe is all about.
It's what America is all about. That is the fabric of our country. It is wonderful. It is great. It's not sexy, so it doesn't get a lot of attention in the news media, but that's what makes us great. And I think as, a dad, I've even had some situations where, not the stress, but the responsibilities of being an elected official pull you all over the place. Some days you wake up never expecting to go to certain meetings that get called and the people want you there, And you balance that with, hey, I've now got this daughter, and she's a huge, and my wife, my wife is just as important, if not more. She's the mom of my child, and she brought her into this world. God bless her, it's an amazing thing. And you want to be there for both of them. And so that's what I think, not pay, not how much money you make, but the responsibility and sometimes the privilege of time. That's really what I consider.
Someday you'll learn the phrase that we just coined, carpe baby.
Yeah.
Seize the baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my daughter, to go to whatever Zumba is, but
Oh yeah,
she
the
drops
dancing.
off the dancing.
Yeah.
She drops off my grandson at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. 3 o'clock, I get a phone call because she's studying for a PhD. So she gets some time. Says, "Dad, do you know where my son is?" I said, "Your son? My grandson is here at Holy Cross watching a basketball game."
Yeah.
You know, I tolerated you for 30 years to get him.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. Keep studying.
Yep.
You know, and my God, you really say we're doing it again.
Yeah.
Here's this little entity that the world is there. Everything that I care about is now one more generation.
Yeah.
And you know, when you talk about family values, I got my sainted mother, my darling bride, my daughter, my grandson. There's 4 generations all sitting together.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So, you know, the only thing I don't understand is why is the legislation a part-time job? Doesn't $100,000 get you closer to where it can be a full-time job for people?
Well, I think that's, I mean, it's a full-time position. And then I think some people say, you know, well, being in the House of Representatives or whatever, that's the best part-time job you can have because you go
you get 2 nights off a week?
Yeah. I think, you know, the problem with being an elected official is having others understand what it is all about and what it entails. And, you know, there's really not time, there's no time off. Thankfully, the legislature does set aside a month in the 2-year session, and they say, you know, we're not going to meet during this time
go
period.
home, be with your family.
Yep, and that's August, the non-year of the election. So this year, August 2017, and my wife and I, we say, this is our time. We're going to go away. We'll probably visit our family in Cape Cod, and maybe we'll take a trip ourselves.
You lie, because then there's this event with the Scouts.
Yeah, well.
And somehow it's Miss Stephanie, I got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear you, how you say you're going to take a month away.
Yeah.
But I always see you pitch in at all these events anyway.
Well, luckily, you know, we don't go too far. So if we go down to the Cape and someone calls and I can be there, my wife is very gracious. She knows a little bit about this now. She's a register of probate. She is an elected official and she gets the same demands on her schedule. And so for a young family, we really, first of all, have to be very communicative. And, you know, we sit down every Sunday after church and we say, this is what the next week looks like. I'll be honest, like, you know, right now she's probably not thrilled with me not being home, and tomorrow night I'm actually doing another show in Northbridge, and Friday night I'm going to Bill Buckley's campaign
I'll be there,
kickoff
Hoboken Club.
Yeah,
yes.
at the Hoboken Club.
But, you
Great
know,
guy.
it's funny because when you talk about, I joke about part-time, but the symphony, the concerts,
Yeah.
if you're not there, your
Oh, yeah.
absence is noticed.
Yep. Oh, Paul Serpine, I went to, you said, you weren't at the last concert,
Right.
were you?
And let's
It's
see.
like, oh
I
my
know
gosh.
Milford's the center of the universe, but there's 12 other towns around it
Yeah.
who also expect me to be at the Scout at all the things.
Yeah. Well, and just recently, I mean, it's elected officials are real people, you know, and so I think the problem these days is when you look at Washington, D.C., it's like a reality TV show. You don't know the people. You know, I think fortunately Milford has a guy in Kennedy who does his best to get around and make sure people know who he is. And he's been available to me when I've needed him. But the demands on a congressman's schedule going back and forth, it puts 1 degree of separation further away from what the average person experiences in a day-to-day life. For us, we have a better ability to be close to the community, and you have to take that opportunity. But I can tell you, you know, there's opportunities where you make mistakes too. And we had a guy the other day who emailed and was not happy because in the course of the first 3-4 weeks of the legislative session, we probably receive maybe 3,000 emails a week. No joke. The reason is because we have 21-ish days to file all the bills.
Yeah.
So we get swamped. You know, in fact, a lot of times my email box, I call the IT services and say, hey, can you expand the amount of memory that I get so I can get more emails? Because we can't delete them fast enough. And some of them are automated. Some of them are organic people really reaching out about a certain subject. And, one gentleman, he reached out to us and he wanted to talk about this issue with the Reggie Lewis Center. And in September, we had emailed back and forth, within minutes. And in February, it was days. And he was upset by that. And, he has every right to be. And we apologized and said, we'll try to make days hours next time. But we get swamped with stuff. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to get back to people.
When I think of the climate, I have a hard time really understanding the difference between a conservative Democrat and a liberal Republican in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Because they all seem to be right there, kind of in the middle, and I see a lot more cooperation.
Yeah.
When I look at C-SPAN, oh boy, there are red banners and blue banners, and I don't see a lot of purple.
Yeah.
What's it like on Beacon Hill?
I think there's a spirit of bipartisanship. I think that always comes from, leadership comes from the top a lot of times. And so you got a guy, Charlie Baker, who I personally like very much. I think he's done a good job as governor of the Commonwealth. I don't agree with him all the time. There's certain issues that, he may be having a different perspective than I do. And some of those are like sportsman type issues. There's a lot of things that he doesn't want to get involved into that in my area for the people that I represent are really important. And, the Attorney General, she did this thing where she changed the gun laws. And there's a lot of people who in our area own guns. And all of a sudden they went from being perfectly legal to now potentially.
Was her intention to sell more AR-15s than history allows in a short period of time?
In a short period of time, yes, because she
was successful.
She did, yeah. But guns are a scary issue for a lot of people because they don't own a gun. I do own a gun, and I've been trained to use it, and that's part of my family tradition. And there's a lot of families. They're good people. They do nothing wrong. They take advantage of the Second Amendment, just like they take advantage of the First. Sometimes in my family, I wish that wasn't the case. But
Ryan, let's look at that. I take exception with the extremists on either side.
Sure.
I can't get rid of my Ithaca Featherlight. It was my first 20 gauge.
Yep.
It's like your first love.
Right.
All the other rifles and shotguns I've had, I've been able to, but that one sits downstairs, locked, protected. If I wanted to buy a new gun, I guess I don't have a problem with waiting 2 or 3 days to make sure I'm not a nutcase.
Yeah.
So, I don't agree fully with the gun lobby that you can't wait 2 days.
Right.
I mean, when I needed my FID card, I went down. Tom O'Loughlin's group took care of me.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that being reasonable on a subject like this is fine, and that's how I try to be. But I would point what the Attorney General had done back in 2016 July was she basically changed the law that currently existed. So people for 20 years were following the law. On July, I think it was 17th, she changed the law, and all of a sudden people had been following the law for 20 years were in violation.
Could be illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a scary movie.
Right.
That I did nothing wrong, but now I'm breaking the law.
Yeah, and it was a big change because she basically said you were legal, and then she said you could go to jail for 10 years and be a felon. And, that had a tangible impact on my family. My father-in-law left. He decided, I'm out of Massachusetts, sorry.
Oh, wow.
I'm getting close to retirement. Life is wonderful for me and my wife and everybody. And he said, I own the guns that you're talking about. To be very clear, these are not automatic weapons. Automatic weapons are not allowed if you have a license to carry. You need a federal license for that. Most people don't get that. And if they do get it, the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, has the right to come to your house unannounced at any point to check that you are holding these
You're not
weapons.
A nutcase. That you're
exactly. And there is tough vetting to get those federal licenses.
Well, and again, a machine gun license. Mm-hmm. Kind of cool to go shoot a machine gun for some people, but I guess with any large privilege, in my mind comes large responsibility.
Yeah, and the great thing is in Massachusetts, handgun violence has gone down. We're one of the lowest in the nations. And when it comes to things like what you would call an assault weapon, an AR-15, It's been 6 or 7 years since someone's been killed by using one of those weapons. We're heading in the right direction. Gun violence is down. I think the laws are appropriate here in Massachusetts, and I think the Attorney General was wrong to change the laws while we're in the middle of playing the game, if you will.
And again, you think about it, and yeah, I want to stay legal. But you know something? I got a grandson in the house. Mm-hmm. My shotgun is going to be protected.
Yeah.
Not for the gun.
Right.
For the grandson.
Yeah.
So there is a trigger guard. You know what I mean? You do all the right things because...
And that's the law.
Okay, you got Miss Hadley.
Yeah. That's the law.
I don't care what the law says. You're going to do it because even if the law didn't say you had to have a trigger guard.
Mm-hmm. I would do it.
You'd have a gun loaded with bullets? No.
Right.
And you wouldn't still have a gun that you didn't have a key to because your biggest job is to protect Hadley.
Yep. Yep.
You know, so I guess some of the stuff that goes down about the gun piece, they talk about slippery slopes, and I sit there and say, wait a minute, if you're reasonable, mm-hmm. then I don't see a problem.
Yeah. Well, I've always said the R in front of my name stands for reform. These days I say it stands for reasonable and respect. You know, I think that part of our dialogue, people can disagree honestly, and that's fine, but you know, to demonize people and to say that they're evil because of this or their opinion, I just think that's un-American. And yes, there are evil people in the world. There's evil people that are in our country and do bad things. But I think on a day-to-day level, most people are good and they just want to go about their daily lives. So I just think one of my responsibilities, and that's why when talking about this issue or the pay raise issue, you know, I'm trying to do it in a focused and measured way that's respectful to all the people who even that I work with that I don't necessarily agree with what they did. In fact, I think it was really wrong. But I would also be hesitant to say that these people are bad because that's not the case. We differ greatly on certain issues. And if we go down that road, I think it's a very dangerous road to go down.
But you know, Ryan, thank God people have different opinions.
Yeah.
Because if everybody, I mean, I've always said on the FinCom, I don't want everybody like me because I'm just too fiscally conservative. I can't help myself.
Right.
I want to spend my $2.58 on my coffee. I have the right to. I earned it, my money.
Yep.
But like you said, when it's your money, I got to think 3 times harder.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm glad there are people who like to overspend.
Right.
Because somewhere between us is probably the right balance, you know, for the town.
Yeah. Well, I think even those people, and I hate to belabor the issue, but I'm going to. You know, the people who love to spend money, I don't think they thought spending money on legislative salaries at $18 million was going to be what they wanted to spend it on. So, you know, $18 million is a lot of money. There's a lot of things I've worked on with Rep. Fernandez and, you know, will be with Rep. Murray, and they're valuable to the community.
Was it the amount in your mind, or was it the percentage all of a sudden happening in a large bolus?
I honestly think the process was most reprehensible. You know, this is the first vote of the legislative session. There was an emergency preamble attached, so it became effective immediately. You put an emergency preamble on a bill like the upskirting bill. Now let me explain that. That's a bill where a guy was arrested because he was sitting on a train, a public train, the MBTA, and he took a picture. He's a pervert. He took a picture of a woman up her skirt. Now, he was arrested. He went to court. The judge dismissed it because there's no laws on the books that say you couldn't do that.
Come on.
Swear to God, this happened.
Somebody takes a picture of my sainted mother, my darling bride, or my daughter.
Yep.
And the judge said that's okay?
Because there was no precedent and there was no law in the books that said that that was a crime. Now, common sense dictates this is disgusting and it should be a crime. So, common sense ruling the day, what does the legislature do? Probably in the history of legislation in this country, it passed within a few hours. It was proposed, it was rammed through, and the reason why it became effective immediately is because there was an emergency preamble on there. The emergency preamble was used to make the law effective immediately because that law should be on the books.
And the raises got classified in the same...
As an emergency. And that's what I think is so objectionable and really insulting to people, is that that's not an emergency. You know, maybe self-centered, yes. An emergency, you know,
And again, if you had a reasonable salary and it went up a couple % a year like most,
yep.
I don't know that most people would object.
Well, that's the other thing. The governor did rate, the way that the base salary operates is that the governor sets it every 2 years. You know, I'll be the first to tell you, it went every year that I've served, it's gone down. This is the first year it's actually gone up, the base salary. I think it went from 60 to 62,500. And the Governor Baker sets that. It's based on a calculation of median household income, and the voters voted for that in 1998. This was different, and this was on top of that. And I just think it was the wrong priority.
Well, now, Charlie and Karen have taken some heat for actually doing what they promised. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong. When we lost some of the money that was earmarked for Milford,
yeah,
I wasn't real happy.
Yeah.
But when I thought about, no, wait a minute, this guy's got to decide opioid programs,
yeah,
or helping me make my town park a little prettier.
Right.
I couldn't really disagree with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I could grumble and say, Karen, you took away my town park.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I saved 3 kids.
Right.
You know, you sit there and he seems to be very popular in a blue state.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that that's what happens when you govern from the middle. I don't think anybody would say he's a right-wing extremist, and I don't think anybody would say he's a left-wing extremist. You know, I think he's been pretty solidly in the middle.
Feels purple to me.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes I think Republicans probably look at that and, you know, kind of grumble a little bit, and I think that, you know, probably people on the far left look at it and say he's really a closet conservative guy,
right.
You know. But the reality is most people in Massachusetts, they're educated voters, they understand issues, they do their research, and what they've seen from the governor is a guy who's well-intentioned, who manages government well. The MBTA is a phenomenal issue. I mean, he has basically taken an organization and cut the operating budget in half in providing better services. I mean, that's incredible. There was a program called The Ride. It was put in place to help handicapped individuals. The definition of handicap grew exponentially under the Patrick administration. The governor came in and said, well, who is using this? I mean, you know, you could say that you were depressed, and God bless people who are depressed, but that would qualify you for the ride. That wasn't the original purpose. It was for paraplegic people, for people who couldn't get around.
Or clinically depressed, you know, it's like, okay, but I'm just having a bad day, and I'm depressed over paying $8 for a taxi.
Yeah, well, and so the expansion of this program became $100 million a year. That's a lot of money. And it was a budget that I believe started around $15 million a year decades ago. The governor, using technology and innovation, has utilized Lyft and Uber, you know, ride-sharing companies, and now that budget went from $100 million down to $30 million. Instead of there being about approximately 1,200 different stops that these old vehicles would make, there's now more than 10,000 because it's a personalized, individualized service. Instead of being on a route, instead of having a schedule, I as an individual who am handicapped can call it on my phone and I can use that service whenever I need it. That is government, I think, at its best. And I think that's really why people admire what the governor's doing. Yes, he's made some tough decisions. Yes, there's some things I disagree with him. But I mean, I would prefer him to be the governor over anybody.
Even when I disagree with Charlie and Karen, I look at their motives, and they seem to have their hearts in the right place.
Yeah.
And I can't, like you say, I'm never going to always agree with you, Ryan. There's going to be things where I don't like that.
Right.
But on balance, they seem to have their hearts in the right place.
And yeah, I think so.
And let's face it, nothing's better than doing the right thing and having good results.
And I also think they provide balance in our state. You know, we do. I'm from the Massachusetts State Senate. I will be the first to tell you, it is the most liberal legislative body perhaps in the country. Maybe the only place that challenges
California?
California might be the only place, but we're awfully close. And we're in constant competition, so that doesn't help the cause. But, you know, in the liberal perspective is good. You know, it provides balance. But in our state, in Massachusetts, in the Senate, you got 34 on one side and 6 on the other. And probably of the 34, you know, 28 of them are fairly liberal. And the rest are somewhere probably more moderate in between. And that also comes from an active constituency. You know, they don't represent the most liberal areas. So my point is saying Charlie and Karen provide balance to some crazy ideas that come out of the Massachusetts State Senate. For example, raising the income tax by 5%. You know, 5 percentage points. So a 100% increase.
I was going to say, people forget that when 5 percentage points, you're going from 5 to 10.
Yeah, right. So that's significant, especially when you consider the voters not too long ago.
Weren't we supposed to cut it down?
Exactly. You know, this idea that you're going to tax people for every mile that they drive, that to me is not a good plan. I just think that that's too invasive. I also think it's too expensive. Massachusetts just came out, U.S. News and World Report ranked us the #1 state in the country to live. The other thing that reports, and it has a whole host of different metrics, you know, high school education, kindergarten, you know, availability to public transportation, healthcare, higher ed. But the one statistic that points out more than any is that we rank 47th when it comes to affordability. So yes, we're a great place to live if you can afford it. And to me, that goes to the question you asked originally about, well, shouldn't legislators be able to afford the job? Well, the reality is we need to create a state holistically that people can afford to live, where there's access to opportunity and they can make a life for themselves here, not just people who are upper middle class or even beyond that. And so that's some place we really need to work hard on.
And that's something that we always have this debate, because too many of the people, and I'm very narrow-minded here, who built Milford are now living on $1,200, $1,400 a month. So every dollar we spend is precious.
Yeah.
And I've had more than one argument with people where if they can't afford the taxes, they can move. I'm like, no, I mean, that just bothers me so much.
Yeah.
Because I'm here because a lot of those people built Milford.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for their effort and dedication, we wouldn't be in this town.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to hear that somebody has to leave because they can't afford to live in our town, or as you say, in Massachusetts.
Well, you know, this has been a long struggle for especially young people, some people younger than myself. I'm 32, but my generation has had a tough time with this issue, especially in Massachusetts. At one point, they were calling it the brain train. You know, young people come to Massachusetts or stay in Massachusetts, they get educated here, and then boop, they leave. So I'm working really hard legislatively to try to provide solutions to some of these problems. For example, you know, I'd like to make sure that when I go, or my children go to school, or any young person is applying to school, that they have the right to know before they go. What does that mean? That means that if I am coming to your school, I want to know the monetary value of the degree that I'm getting. And what am I going to make coming out? What kind of debt do I have to take on in order to finance? It should be 100% transparent. You have right now a lot of people who, for whatever reason, and it's not right, but for whatever reason, they go into college very naively. They don't understand the cost, perhaps because they're borrowing up front. Maybe their parents are helping them out with it, and they're borrowing it, and then all of a sudden they graduate and they have $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 worth of debt. In our public schools right now, the average is about $30,000 worth of debt. That's a lot of money. And so when you're starting your life that way, and you don't even have a job, and for this age group, jobs are in Massachusetts more difficult to come by, good paying jobs. You know, that's a big problem. So we're trying to create a law that would require schools to do an analysis and upfront provide the information. How much debt will you personally have to take out? What type of money do you expect to get from the degree that you're getting? You know, God bless people who are Greek history buffs, and that's what they're going to school for. But unless you're going to become an academic, getting a job in that
you better
field,
go get a PhD so you can teach in college.
Exactly. The second thing I'd like to see happen, I'd like to see it happen for all people, but specifically, millennial, younger individuals coming out of college. I want them to be able to put money aside tax-free for a house savings account. That is, when you put that money in, it's not going to be taxed on its way in and on its way out, as long as it's going to a house. To me, that is a really important thing because home ownership levels amongst my generation are the lowest they've been in a
Ryan,
generation.
I don't know how. If parents don't help, when I graduated, you graduated college. You or Stephanie, did you have more than $32.80 in your pocket? And if you did, you were the lucky ones.
Right.
Because when I think about it, you come out of college, you got to buy a car normally, because not too many of us had cars.
Yeah.
If you get married, you got to buy another car.
Yep.
And you either got to pay some ridiculous rent or try and buy a house. Well, if you got $1,000 a month on your back of school loans,
yeah,
even if you're making 50 grand, which nice salary,
yeah,
how do you afford it?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. $583 a month is what I paid. I'm pretty much I'm getting around the corner. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I came out of college with almost no debt, mostly because I worked really hard, and a lot of people do. My family makes fun of me because when I got my first job in college, I realized how expensive it was going to be. The only place that would hire me was Bath and Body Works. Most men don't prefer to work there, right? But I did because I would be a greeter and they'd pay me $12 an hour, and that was great. Especially, I think at that time, minimum wage was like $6.50, right? So it was good, and I saved up my money and I tried to pay my bills. Sometimes people don't have that opportunity. I did. Hard work has to be instilled in people, but I think financial literacy is another important topic. It's not taught or required in all schools in Massachusetts. I think it should. How to balance a checkbook. I think that, vocational schools are really doing a great job preparing kids for the workforce. I think that high school, Milford, I've been very impressed in some of the programs. Bob Tremblay, I know he's gone now, but some of the programs where he partnered with hospitality, like hotels, the DoubleTree, and he'd put those kids who are interested in those subjects in, and they do internships there. Those are great opportunities for people to learn skills and then be able to make money.
Well, that brings up a point where I'm one of the people who's very worried about people like my father.
Yep.
You put him in organic chemistry, he wouldn't do well. He was not an academician.
Right.
Give him a tool, the man was an artist.
Yep.
And what worries me and what I loved about the program that Bob put in is, what do you do for people like my father? He cannot get into Blackstone.
Yep.
Because you got to be the top 15% of your class academically,
yeah,
or you're not going to get picked.
Yeah.
So you got a guy who wants to work hard, or a gal, great with their hands. Now what do you do with them?
Right. Yeah, and I think that we need to really look at this educationally with vocational schools. I know the governor's talked about expansion. I think it's a good idea when you consider the day-to-day needs of children who are going to become productive members of society. But I think that financial literacy taught in all schools would be a great idea, because a lot of people don't understand what it is to budget. A lot of people don't understand what it is to balance a checkbook. A lot of people don't know what it is, what a 457 plan would be, or an IRA. They don't know these things.
Ryan, when I graduated Holy Cross, now my mom worked as a drill press operator at Draper's. She's bringing home a massive $10,000 a year. My dad worked as an assembly person at GM. He was bringing home phenomenal 18 grand a year.
Right.
And I'm sitting there saying, somehow they paid $6,200 so I could go to Holy Cross and get out debt free.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, my God, how did they save this kind of money?
Yeah.
And yet my last payment for my youngest was over $5,000 for the month.
Oh, yeah.
You know, these private schools now are $60-some thousand.
Yep.
If we hadn't paid, she'd be coming out of Holy Cross owing $250,000.
Yeah.
Where could you even begin
to
to have a life.
Well, this is one of the things last session that I took up pretty significantly. Maybe didn't make a lot of friends when I spoke about it, but and I have a lot of respect for the people at our UMass systems and our public universities, but there's some people there who make 3 or 4 times what the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts make, and they teach 2 or 3 classes a semester. You know, I'm sure they teach well, and I'm sure that they're qualified, but should somebody be making that much more money on a public salary than the governor of the Commonwealth? And I think, you know, when they talk about salary adjustments, that's one thing that I do think we get wrong. You know, the governor, I think he makes now $150,000. He runs a $40 billion enterprise.
I have sales reps making more.
You know, fortunately, I think Charlie and Karen are personally in different situations.
Well, yeah, but
that's
still
fine.
There's something not quite right. And what you bring up on the professors, I don't take anything away from them trying to make more.
Yeah.
But if they're making more, that means tuition, yes.
And that's where the ultimate problem becomes. And so, you know, we got to do something about it. We have to be a little bit more restrained and just saying, oh yeah, here you go. But the problem is, the big problem is it's an electoral problem. Yeah. Young people don't vote.
Right.
They don't have a voice. You know, a lot of times, even if they're eligible to vote, they don't. And so what happens? This gets put on their back, and they come out on the back end, the losers. You know, they do have a degree. They've been privileged to go to school. Sure. A lot of them worked really hard to get there. But, you know, politically, there's no one that's really going to bat for them.
It's so hard because for the 6 people who watch my show, they know I have never asked anybody to vote for a candidate. Not my place. But I beg them, April 4th, get your backside out and vote.
Yeah.
And especially the young people.
Yeah.
Because they become disenfranchised when they say, you're an old person now, you're 30.
Yeah.
Me, I'm just ancient. But
I think the great thing about Milford and the privilege for Milford is that there's a lot of good people running. Mike Walsh, Harold Rhodes, great people. You know, I've gotten a chance to meet both of them in my travels. John Erickson, Bill Buckley. I'll say Bill Buckley, I hear from no one in all the towns I represent more than Bill Buckley. Calls me, advocates for the town of Milford. Always, you know, I look at my phone, my wife is like, is that Bill? You know, but that shows you he cares about the role he plays.
His constituents.
Exactly. Josh Leosh, another great guy running for local office. You know, the Milford has great people that are stepping up. Al Correa on the finance committee. You know,
so
Mike
Soares, exception.
Ed Bertorelli. You know, these are all people who are very well intentioned, want to do the right thing. John Fernandez, Brian Murray. But I really respect these people.
To me, I would love to see a 20-some-year-old on the FinCom.
Yeah.
Because I don't think like them.
Right.
Right? And we have a lot of 20, just before 30s people in town. You hope you represent them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think of my daughter, and her perspective on things is so different from mine.
Yeah.
So, you know, if anything, I'd love to see some younger people.
Yeah.
Instead of just all of us old relics.
Oh yeah, no.
On there.
I think having new blood is always a wonderful thing. I think people with new ideas. Hey, that's the old joke. You know, when I'm running, is I'm talking about new ideas and you know how we need the new blood and then re-election. We need experience.
Experience, yes.
But I mean, my point is the quality of the people who run from this town is very high. And you know, $84,000 that John Fernandez and I worked on to get for opioid addiction. I would venture to say that without people like Bill Buckley and Amy Leone, who is instrumental in that money, they were the ones that pushed
Tom
that.
O'Loughlin.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you have people who care about this community, and it's a wonderful thing. I've got the privilege of representing 14 towns. Where Milford sticks out is the quantity of high character. That's a wonderful thing.
Now, budget-wise, always, okay, we're running down towards the end of the year.
Yep.
How are we looking?
Well, the budget came out from the governor just a few weeks ago. They call that House 1. And, you know, for the most part, local communities, I think, are pleased. I think sometimes it's difficult to please everybody, but Chapter 70 went up. What they call UGA, Unrestricted General Government Aid, That went up. I think it was $40 million, and Chapter 70 went up $91 million. I would also point out that the Chapter 70 Foundation Review Commission, that came out and they said that towns need help paying for post-employee benefits. That's a huge burden financially.
OPEB is a problem?
Very big.
As we're $60 million exposed?
Oh, just in Milford?
Yes.
Yeah, and so the governor took a down payment of about $65 million and put it, no, we don't know what it exactly means, but this is another source of local revenue that towns can tap into. You know, the community compact, you know, speaking about family, I brought my daughter Hadley to the community compact and got to sit there with the Lieutenant Governor, Bill Buckley, Brian Murray, John Fernandez, and she got a front row experience to government. Tom O'Laughlin, all the chiefs. But, you know, that program last year wasn't funded. This year, it's been proposed at $8 million. Why is that important? Communities can apply for grants for best practices. Milford's got a lot of them. And they can get money and be rewarded for the good deeds that they do in government. The big problem we have is a $600 million deficit with Medicaid and Medicare. The Affordable Care Act basically created this problem. The Affordable Care Act was passed in 2009. We had universal health care coverage. We called it Romney Care here in Massachusetts. What Romney Care said at that time was that if you offer a plan to an employee, that employee must take it. And that employee cannot decide, no, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to go to the state mass health system. Affordable Care Act got rid of that stipulation and said the employee gets to decide. Obviously, the commercial market, where employers were offering insurance, was more expensive often than the state subsidized one, taxpayer subsidized market. So employees, after the Affordable Care Act, had the decision, do I pay more and have more pay out of my paycheck, or do I go over and get state subsidized? And so this is created.
That's a hard decision to think they made.
And it makes sense when you think about it logically. You know, people are presented with a problem. You need health care. Just like most people, they say, well, what's more affordable? They go with the more affordable option. Well, half of that, though, is subsidized by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the residents. We went from, we are now up to 1.9 million people who are on mass health. That's a huge number, about
Holy moly.
28%.
It's a third of the people in, well, not a third, but awful close to a third of the people in the state are on mass health.
About 28%. And that comes from that choice. And you can't really blame employers because, you know, that was a conscious decision they were having to make to balance their budgets too. And what I would point out is that 535,000 people in Massachusetts moved from private insurance to mass health from 2011.
Ryan, if I'm running the company and you say, okay, I'm going to save you $18,000 a year by going on mass health.
Yeah.
Please no. Yeah. Stay with me. Let me pay the premium. Come on.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No employer is going to sit there and say, oh, no, because mass health's pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. We've got a good healthcare system. We're ranked #2 in the country, I think next to either New York or California. But so $600 million deficit in this program, that's a significant amount of money. We have to figure out what we're going to do there. I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And of course, we have to see what the federal government's going to do with the whole host of issues. The ACA is one of them.
Well, and again, when I listen to President Trump's State of the Union, it felt more presidential than I ever hoped.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of us were scared when you heard the campaign rhetoric.
Right.
You know, I was more scared on some other people, but, you know, some of the ideas, and I kept saying, well, when you get to Washington, big difference from being a CEO and saying you will do this or you're fired.
Right, yeah.
To having to herd all the cats in the Capitol.
Yeah.
It seems, at least what I'm seeing is, he's calming down.
Yeah, I thought his presentation the other night was very good. He was more reserved, more calm. I think his ideas were more in depth about what he wanted to do. He had numerous times both sides of the aisle standing up and clapping, applauding. Most significantly,
Now, I got to take one exception. You talked about a hero, a man who gave his life for his family, his country. And I saw people sitting there with scowls.
yeah.
What was that about?
Well, irrespective of what it was about, it's not good. The situation you're talking about is Ryan Owen. He was a U.S. Navy SEAL, part of SEAL Team 6, and lost his life in a mission that started actually with the Obama administration. And they decided to allow the Trump administration to decide what they were going to do with that operation. Unfortunately, one guy lost his life, Ryan Owen, his wife.
And frankly, Ryan, I don't care what administration, what. I'm looking at a wife, a family that lost dad, that lost a husband.
Oh, yeah, and you could see the grief
How
all over.
could I not stand up and show respect for that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. I think it was probably the most powerful moment in the speech, and I would probably say in the history of these types of addresses to Congress, probably one of the most powerful ever. Mostly because Karen Owen, the wife, her reaction, just raw emotion, crying, the loss. You could empathize with it to a degree if you've ever lost someone you love, but you've never had to necessarily do it in front of millions of people and express it.
But even
so sad.
the thought, when you look at your best friend,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. I would crater if I didn't have the partner who supported me now for 100 years of marriage.
Right.
It's just, oh my God.
Yeah, no, I know, it's terrible. It's so sad. But,
But overall, how would you rate it, the speech?
the best he's given.
Well,
That's for sure. We running out of time?
I have no idea.
They're giving us the hook.
I think they're giving us the hook tonight, even though we have a minute or so.
Yeah, I would say that it was the best he's given. And, if he continues in that direction and can bring Democrats and Republicans along, hopefully the country will be more productive, and that scene that, replays over and over in Washington that's not fun for anybody to watch will be better.
To the credit of some of the blue people, they were showing, and I always love watching Fox News and CNN, because somewhere in between them is what I consider reality.
Right, yeah.
But they were showing that some of the people who weren't really enthusiastic at the end.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you love or hate, I was not an Obama supporter.
Yeah.
But when he became my president, I prayed for his success.
Oh, yeah.
I hoped he was a winner.
Yep.
Because, we're in this rowboat together, and even if I don't like you, I'm not going to drill holes on my side.
Right. Yeah.
There are consequences to hoping you fail.
Absolutely. And just, when some gentleman who was in Congress yelled out when the President Obama was giving his speech, "You lie," that was inappropriate. That's not what our
But again,
government
there I
should be
thought,
about.
respect the office, even if you don't love the man.
Right, exactly.
Show respect for the
you have to
show
have
respect
decorum.
for the person who gave his life.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
It's
for having
always
me
great
on.
to see what you're up to.
Enjoyed the conversation.
I mean, you had one night home this week, and Miss Stephanie lets you come here, so
Hey, we'll get plenty of time this weekend.
sounds great. Thanks again to our 6 loyal viewers. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time to learn what's going on, and more importantly, to learn about the people who represent us and their values. So as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.